I do. Those two little words sealed my fate. If only I'd known then what I know now. The late afternoon sun streamed through the courthouse windows as I stood beside Noah, my heart swelling with hope and love. His warm brown eyes crinkled at the corners as he smiled down at me, and I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. At 37, I'd finally found my happily ever after. Or so I thought. 2 weeks later, I stood frozen in our driveway, watching Noah load suitcases into his mother's Mercedes. Our honeymoon luggage packed for a romantic getaway I'd spent months planning and most of my savings on. Noah? My voice cracked. What's going on? He turned, his expression a mix of guilt and defiance. Evelyn, I can explain. Before he could continue, his mother Phyllis emerged from the house, designer sunglasses perched on her nose. Noah, darling, did you remember to pack my sun hat? I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. You're taking your mother on our honeymoon? Noah's eyes darted between us. Evelyn, please understand. Mom's been looking forward to this trip for months. I couldn't disappoint her. Disappoint her? I sputtered. What about disappointing your wife? Phyllis skied, patting Noah's arm. Now, dear, I'm sure Evelyn understands how important family is. Don't you, Evelyn? I stared at her, speechless. This woman, who'd shown nothing but thinly veiled disdain for me since the day we met, was now stealing my honeymoon? Noah, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Can we talk privately for a moment? He hesitated, glancing at his mother. Go on, sweetheart, Phyllis cooed. I'll finish packing the car. I grabbed Noah's arm and pulled him inside, slamming the front door behind us. What the hell is going on? I hissed. He had the decency to look ashamed. I'm sorry, Evelyn. I know this isn't what we planned, but Mom's been so lonely since Dad left. She needs this vacation. And I need a husband who puts his wife first, I shot back. Do you have any idea how this makes me feel? Noah ran a hand through his hair. I know, but it's just one trip. We can go on our own honeymoon later, I promise. I laughed bitterly. Later? Noah, this was supposed to be our time, our start as a married couple, and you're choosing your mother over me? I'm not choosing anyone, he protested weakly. I'm just trying to make everyone happy. Well, congratulations, I spat. You've succeeded in making me completely miserable. A car horn blared outside. Noah jumped. I have to go. We'll talk when I get back, okay? Before I could respond, he was out the door. I followed, watching in disbelief. He climbed into the passenger seat beside Phyllis. As they backed out of the driveway, Phyllis lowered her window. Don't worry, dear, she called, her voice sickeningly sweet. I'll take good care of your husband. The Mercedes disappeared around the corner, leaving me standing alone in the driveway, my world crumbling around me. I stumbled back inside, collapsing onto the couch. How had this happened? How had my dream wedding turned into such a nightmare? As the shock wore off, a new emotion began to simmer in my chest. Rage. Pure, white-hot rage. Noah might think he could walk all over me, but he was about to learn a painful lesson. I grabbed my phone, my fingers shaking as I dialed. Hello, is this Sunset Travel Agency? I need to make some changes to a reservation. If Noah thought he could have his cake and eat it too, he had another thing coming. Two could play at this game, and I was just getting started. I paced the living room, my mind reeling. How had I ended up here? Just 6 months ago, I was Dr. Evelyn Harper, respected school psychologist, content with my career and independence. Now, I was a jilted bride, abandoned on my honeymoon for my mother-in-law. The phone rang, jarring me from my thoughts. It was my best friend, Lisa. Evelyn, what's going on? I just got the strangest call from Noah's cousin. I sank onto the couch. Oh, Lisa, it's a disaster. Noah left for our honeymoon with Phyllis. What? Lisa's voice rose an octave. His mother? Please tell me you're joking. I wish I was, I said, fighting back tears. I don't know what to do. Start from the beginning, Lisa urged. How did this happen? I closed my eyes, remembering the night that had changed everything. Remember that alumni mixer last fall? The one you dragged me to? Of course, Lisa said. You met Noah there. He seemed so perfect, I said softly. Charming, attentive, successful. When he asked for my number, I thought, this is it. This is my chance at happiness. I stood up, moving to the window. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet, peaceful, so different from the turmoil inside me. We started dating, and everything moved so fast. He was always calling, always wanting to spend time together. I felt cherished. But, Lisa prompted, I sighed. But there were signs. Little things I ignored because I wanted so badly for it to work out. Like what? Like how he'd cancel plans at the last minute because his mother needed him, or how he'd consult her on every decision, big or small. I remembered our first big fight, just a month into dating. We'd planned a weekend getaway, but Noah had bailed to help Phyllis redecorate her guest room. I confronted him about it, I told Lisa. He got defensive, said I was being selfish, that family should come first. Oh, Evelyn, Lisa murmured. I know, I should have seen it then. But when he proposed 3 months later, I was over the moon. I thought marriage would change things. I laughed bitterly. Turns out I was right. It did change things, just not in the way I expected. So what are you going to do? Lisa asked. Before I could answer, my cell phone buzzed. A text from Noah. Evelyn, I'm sorry. Please understand. I'll make it up to you, I promise. Anger flared in my chest. Make it up to me? I hissed. How exactly do you plan to do that, Noah? Evelyn? Lisa's voice came through the landline, concerned. What's happening? I ignored her, furiously typing a response to Noah. Understand what? That you chose your mother over your wife? That you stole our honeymoon? Don't bother coming back. I'll have your things packed and waiting on the porch. I hit send, my hands shaking. Evelyn, Lisa shouted. Talk to me. I picked up the landline. I'm done, Lisa. I'm done being second best. If Noah wants his mother so badly, he can have her. I'm filing for an annulment. Are you sure? Lisa asked. Maybe you should wait until... Wait for what? I snapped. For him to come back and make more empty promises? No, I'm taking control of my life again. As I said the words, a plan began to form in my mind. Noah thought he could just walk away from this. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Lisa, I said, my voice steady for the first time since Noah had driven away. I need your help with something. Anything, she replied without hesitation. I smiled grimly. How quickly can you get to the Bahamas? As I threw clothes into my suitcase, memories of Noah's peculiar behavior flooded back. How could I have been so blind? The signs were there all along, screaming at me to pay attention. I paused, holding one of Noah's shirts. The scent of his cologne lingered, and for a moment, my resolve wavered. Then I remembered Phyllis's smug face as they drove away, and anger surged through me again. My phone buzzed. Another text from Noah. Evelyn, please, let's talk about this when I get back. I scoffed, typing furiously. There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. As I hit send, a knock at the door startled me. I opened it to find Sarah, Noah's sister, standing there with a concerned look on her face. Evelyn, what's going on? I've been trying to reach Noah, but he's not answering. I laughed bitterly. Oh, he's probably too busy enjoying his honeymoon with your mother. Sarah's eyes widened. What? That's impossible. Noah wouldn't. Wouldn't what? I snapped. Choose Phyllis over me? Because that's exactly what he did. I invited her in, recounting the events of the past few hours. Sarah listened, her face a mix of shock and embarrassment. I'm so sorry, Evelyn, she said softly. I knew Mom was overly attached to Noah, but I never thought it would go this far. Neither did I admitted, but looking back, the signs were everywhere. I told her about the time Noah missed my birthday dinner because Phyllis had a crisis, a leaky faucet that apparently couldn't wait until morning, or the weekend he spent helping Phyllis declutter her attic instead of attending my award ceremony at work. I remember that weekend, Sarah said, frowning. Mom bragged about it for weeks, how Noah was such a devoted son. And what about our engagement party? I asked. When Phyllis announced she was moving in with us after the wedding? Sarah winced. God, that was awful. I've never seen you so angry. I nodded, remembering the fight that followed. Noah had defended his mother, saying I was being selfish for not wanting to care for her in her golden years. Never mind that Phyllis was only in her early 60s and in perfect health. I thought things would change after we got married, I said softly. I thought he'd finally put me first. Sarah reached out, squeezing my hand. This isn't your fault, Evelyn. Noah, he's always had a blind spot when it comes to Mom. Dad leaving hit them both hard. I froze. Wait, what? Noah told me his father died when he was young. Sarah's eyes widened. He what? No, Dad left when Noah was in college. Mom took it hard, leaned on Noah for everything. I guess he never really stopped trying to make up for Dad leaving. The revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. All this time, I'd thought I was competing with a grieving widow, Instead, I was up against a manipulative woman who'd spent years molding her son into the perfect surrogate husband. "I can't believe he lied to me," I whispered. Sarah squeezed my hand again. "What are you going to do?" I stood up, my mind made up. "I'm going to the Bahamas, and I'm bringing reinforcements." I quickly explained my plan to Sarah. Her eyes lit up with a mix of admiration and mischief. "Count me in," she said firmly. "It's time someone stood up to Mom and knocked some sense into my idiot brother." As we finalized our plans, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Phyllis. "Evelyn, dear, I hope you understand. Noah needs me. You'll see, this is for the best." I showed the message to Sarah, who rolled her eyes. "Unbelievable." I smiled grimly. "Oh, they'll see all right. They'll see exactly what happens when you mess with Evelyn Harper." The airport bustled with activity as Sarah and I rushed to catch our flight to the Bahamas. My heart raced, a mix of anger and determination fueling my every step. "Are you sure about this, Evelyn?" Sarah asked. Concern etched on her face. I nodded firmly. "Absolutely. Your brother needs to learn he can't have his cake and eat it too." As we boarded the plane, my phone buzzed. Another message from Noah. "Evelyn, please, I know I messed up. Let me explain." I showed Sarah the text, rolling my eyes. "He still doesn't get it, does he?" Sarah sighed. "Noah's always been dense when it comes to Mom. But this is a new low, even for him." As the plane took off, I closed my eyes, remembering the day Noah and I decided on our honeymoon plans. We'd been curled up on the couch, flipping through travel brochures. "What about the Bahamas?" Noah had suggested, his eyes twinkling. White sand beaches, crystal clear water. I'd laughed, snuggling closer. "Sounds perfect, but can we afford it?" Noah had hesitated just for a moment. "Don't worry about that. I'll take care of everything." Now, I realized the hidden meaning behind those words. He'd planned this betrayal from the start. Halfway through the flight, Sarah nudged me. "Evelyn, there's something you should know." I turned to her, eyebrow raised. "What is it?" She took a deep breath. "Remember how I told you Dad left when Noah was in college? Well, there's more to the story." My stomach clenched. "Go on, Dad." "He left because of Mom's obsession with Noah. He couldn't take it anymore, how she always put Noah first even before her own husband." The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. "And Noah, how did he handle it?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "He blamed himself, thought if he'd been a better son, Dad wouldn't have left. That's when things really got bad with Mom. She latched onto him even more, and he let her." I sat back, stunned. The pieces were falling into place, painting a picture of dysfunction I'd been too blind to see. As we landed in the Bahamas, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a photo from Phyllis. My blood boiled as I saw her and Noah, smiling on the beach that should have been my honeymoon destination. The caption read, "Having a wonderful time. Wish you were here, dear." Sarah peered over my shoulder, gasping. "Oh my God, she's completely lost it." I stood up, grabbing my bag with newfound determination. "Come on, we have work to do." We made our way to the hotel, my mind racing with plans. As we checked in, the receptionist smiled brightly. "Mrs. Harper, we've been expecting you. Your husband left a message. He said to tell you he's sorry and hopes you'll join them for dinner tonight." I froze, my hand hovering over the room key. What?" The receptionist's smile faltered. "Is everything all right, ma'am?" I forced a smile. "Yes, thank you. We'll be there." As we rode the elevator to our room, Sarah turned to me. "What are you thinking?" I met her gaze, a plan forming in my mind. "I'm thinking it's time to give Noah and Phyllis a taste of their own medicine." Sarah's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" I smiled grimly. "They want me at dinner? Fine, but I won't be coming alone." As the elevator doors opened, I pulled out my phone, dialing a number I never thought I'd use. "Hello?" a gruff voice answered. I took a deep breath. "Mr. Harper, this is Evelyn, Noah's wife. I think it's time you and your son had a little reunion." My heart pounded as I stood outside the restaurant, Sarah by my side. Through the window, I could see Noah and Phyllis laughing over cocktails. The sight made my blood boil. "Are you ready for this?" Sarah asked, squeezing my arm. I took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." We walked in, heads held high. The moment Noah saw us, his face drained of color. Phyllis, on the other hand, had the audacity to smile. "Evelyn, dear, what a lovely surprise," she cooed as if this were a casual dinner party. Noah stood up, his eyes wide with panic. "Evelyn, I can explain." I held up a hand, silencing him. "Save it, Noah. I'm not here for your excuses. Phyllis's smile faltered. Now, let's not make a scene. Why don't you join us? We can talk this out like adults. I laughed bitterly. Oh, we'll talk all right. But first, I think there's someone else who should join this little family reunion. On cue, Robert Harper walked in. Noah's father, the man who'd walked out years ago, unable to compete with his own son for his wife's affection. Noah's face went from pale to ashen. Dad? What are you doing here? Robert's eyes were hard as he looked at his son. Evelyn called me. Seems like some things never change, do they, Phyllis? Phyllis stood up so quickly her chair toppled over. Robert, you have no right to be here. I have every right, Robert growled. This is my son's honeymoon, isn't it? Oh, wait, my mistake. It's your honeymoon with our son. The restaurant had gone eerily quiet, all eyes on our table. I could feel the weight of their stares, but I didn't care. This needed to happen. Noah looked between his parents and me, his face a mask of confusion and fear. Evelyn, please. Let me explain. It's not what you think. Then what is it, Noah? I snapped. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you chose your mother over your wife. On our honeymoon, no less. Phyllis tried to interject, but Robert cut her off. Let him speak, Phyllis. For once in his life, let Noah make his own decisions. Noah's eyes darted around the table like a cornered animal looking for escape. I didn't mean for this to happen. Mom said she needed me, that she was lonely. She's always lonely, Noah. Robert interrupted. That's her M.O. She's been using that line since you were in diapers. Phyllis gasped. How dare you? I've only ever wanted what's best for my son. No, I said, my voice steady despite the anger coursing through me. You've only ever wanted what's best for you. Noah's just a pawn in your sick game. Noah's face crumpled. That's not true. Mom loves me. She's suffocating you, son, Robert said softly. Can't you see that? The tension at the table was palpable. Noah looked lost, torn between the woman who raised him and the harsh truth staring him in the face. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I had to do next. Noah, I love you, but I won't be second best in my own marriage. It's time for you to choose, really choose, your mother or me. The restaurant fell silent, all eyes on Noah. He looked at his mother, then at me, his face a battlefield of emotions. I don't know, he whispered. And in that moment, I knew. I knew what I had to do, what I should have done months ago. I slipped off my wedding ring, placing it on the table with a soft clink. Then I'll make the choice for you. Goodbye, Noah. As I turned to leave, Phyllis's voice rang out. You can't leave. Noah needs me. Us. I paused at the door, looking back one last time. No, Phyllis. The only thing Noah needs is to grow up, and he'll never do that with you around. With that, I walked out, leaving behind the man I thought I'd spend my life with and the twisted family dynamic that had torn us apart. As the warm Bahamian air hit my face, I felt something I hadn't in months. Freedom. I stormed out of the restaurant, my mind reeling. The warm Bahamian air did little to cool my anger as I paced along the beach, waves crashing at my feet. Sarah caught up to me, breathless. Evelyn, wait, what happened in there? It was intense. I laughed bitterly. Intense? That's putting it mildly. Did you see Noah's face? He couldn't even choose between his wife and his mother. Sarah nodded, her expression pained. I know. I'm so sorry, Evelyn. I never thought Noah would. Her words were cut off by a shrill voice behind us. Evelyn! Sarah! We turned to see Phyllis hurrying towards us, her designer sandals sinking into the sand. I steeled myself, ready for another confrontation. What do you want, Phyllis? I snapped. To my surprise, Phyllis's face crumpled. I need your help. It's Noah. My heart skipped a beat. What about Noah? He's gone, Phyllis said, her voice trembling. After you left, he just ran off. Robert went after him, but I felt a mix of emotions, concern, anger, and a twisted sense of satisfaction. And why should I care? He made his choice. Phyllis grabbed my arm, her eyes pleading. Please, Evelyn, I know I've been difficult, but Noah needs us, both of us. I stared at her, incredulous. Both of us? You've spent our entire relationship trying to push me out, and now you want my help? I know, Phyllis said, tears streaming down her face. I was wrong. So wrong. I see that now. Please, help me find my son. I looked at Sarah, who shrugged helplessly. Part of me wanted to walk away, to let Noah and Phyllis deal with their mess. But another part, the part that still loved Noah despite everything, couldn't bear the thought of him alone and upset. Fine, I said finally. But this doesn't change anything between us, Phyllis. We split up to search the resort. As I combed the beach, my mind raced. What would I even say to Noah if I found him? How could we move past this betrayal? After an hour of fruitless searching, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Evelyn, it's Robert. I found Noah. Meet us at the lighthouse. Hurry." My heart pounding, I raced towards the lighthouse at the end of the beach. As I approached, I saw two figures silhouetted against the setting sun, Noah and his father. Noah turned as I neared, his face a mask of anguish. "Evelyn, I held up a hand, cutting him off. "Save it, Noah. What were you thinking, running off like that?" "Your mother is worried sick." Noah flinched at the mention of Phyllis. "I couldn't face her, or you. I've made such a mess of everything." Robert placed a hand on Noah's shoulder. "Son, it's time to face the consequences of your actions. You can't keep running from difficult conversations." I watched this interaction, a realization dawning. This was the father-son relationship Noah had been missing all these years. The guidance and support Phyllis had tried to replace with her suffocating love. "Noah," I said softly, "we need to talk. Really talk. About us, about your mother, about everything." Noah nodded, his eyes meeting mine for the first time. "I know. I'm ready. I think I finally understand what I've been doing wrong all these years." Just then, Phyllis's voice rang out. "Noah! Oh, thank goodness!" She rushed towards us, arms outstretched. But before she could reach Noah, he stepped back, placing himself between me and his father. "Mom," he said, his voice firm. "We need to talk too. Things are going to change." Phyllis froze, her eyes darting between Noah, Robert, and me. I could see the realization dawning on her face. Her control was slipping away. As we stood there, the four of us facing each other with the lighthouse as our backdrop, I knew we were at a turning point. Whatever happened next would define our relationships forever. Noah took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "I have something to say to all of you, and this time I'm not running away." The tension at the lighthouse was palpable as Noah prepared to speak. I held my breath, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure everyone could hear it. Noah took a deep breath, his eyes moving from his mother to his father, and finally resting on me. "I've been a coward," he began, his voice shaky but gaining strength. "I've let fear and misplaced loyalty dictate my life for far too long." Phyllis stepped forward, reaching for Noah's arm. "Sweetheart, you don't have to." "No, Mom," Noah said firmly, pulling away from her grasp. "I do have to. For once in my life, I need to stand up and be honest." He turned to his father. "Dad, when you left, I blamed myself. I thought if I'd been a better son, you wouldn't have gone. So I tried to be everything for Mom, to fill the void you left." Robert's face crumpled with guilt. "Son, I never meant." Noah held up a hand. "I know, Dad. I understand now. But back then, I didn't. And Mom?" He turned to Phyllis, whose face had gone pale. "You took advantage of that. You used my guilt and fear to keep me close, to make me your surrogate husband." Phyllis gasped, tears welling in her eyes. "Noah, how can you say that? I love you." "I know you do, Mom," Noah said softly. "But your love has been suffocating me. It's prevented me from growing up, from having real relationships." Then he turned to me, and I felt my heart clench. "Evelyn," he said, his voice breaking. "I've hurt you so deeply, and I'm so sorry. I married you thinking I could have it all, a wife and my mother's approval. But I was wrong. I've been unfair to you from the start." I swallowed hard, fighting back tears. "Noah, But he wasn't finished. "I don't expect you to forgive me. What I've done is unforgivable. But I want you to know that I do love you, and I'm ready to be the husband you deserve, if you'll have me." The silence that followed was deafening. We all stood there, the weight of Noah's words hanging in the air. I felt torn, my anger and hurt warring with the love I still felt for him. Suddenly, Phyllis let out a strangled cry. "No, I won't let you do this, Noah. You can't abandon me." She lunged forward, grabbing Noah's arm with surprising strength. Noah stumbled, losing his balance on the rocky ground near the lighthouse. Time seemed to slow down. I saw Noah teetering on the edge of the cliff, Phyllis still clinging to him. Without thinking, I rushed forward, reaching for Noah's other hand. Our fingers brushed, and for a moment, I thought I had him. But then I felt myself being pulled forward, the ground disappearing beneath my feet. I heard shouts of alarm, felt hands grasping at my clothes. But it was too late. Noah, Phyllis, and I were falling, tumbling through the air towards the churning waves below. As the water rushed up to meet us, I had a moment of crystal clarity. This was it. This was where our twisted family drama had led us. To the edge of a cliff, literally and figuratively. The impact with the water knocked the breath from my lungs. I struggled to surface, the waves tossing me about like a rag doll. Through the spray, I caught glimpses of Noah and Phyllis also fighting against the current. As I gasped for air, I realized the true gravity of our situation. We were all in over our heads, drowning in the consequences of our actions, and now our very lives hung in the balance. In that moment, facing death, I had to make a choice. Did I have it in me to forgive, to help the very people who had hurt me so deeply, or would I let the waves of resentment pull us all under? With my strength fading, I made my decision. I just hoped it wasn't too late. The waves crashed around us, salt water burning my eyes and throat. I could barely make out Noah and Phyllis through the spray, both struggling to stay afloat. In that moment, all the anger and betrayal I'd felt seemed insignificant compared to the fight for survival. "Noah," I shouted, my voice barely audible over the roaring sea, "grab your mother." He looked at me, confusion and fear etched on his face, but he obeyed. As he reached for Phyllis, I swam towards them, fighting against the current with every ounce of strength I had left. Just as I reached them, a massive wave hit, sending us tumbling. I felt a sharp pain in my leg as it struck something underwater. Panic threatened to overwhelm me, but I forced it down. I had to focus. "Hold on to each other," I yelled, grabbing Noah's free arm. "We need to swim together." As we battled the waves, I caught glimpses of the shore. Robert and Sarah were there, waving frantically. I could see other figures too, resort staff, I assumed, coming to our rescue. It felt like hours, but it was probably only minutes before we felt the bottom beneath our feet. Exhausted, we stumbled onto the beach, collapsing onto the sand. As paramedics rushed to our aid, I looked at Noah and Phyllis. We were alive, but the real storm was yet to come. Hours later, after being checked over at the local hospital, we found ourselves back at the resort. The four of us, Noah, Phyllis, Robert, and I, sat in tense silence in our suite. Noah was the first to speak. I don't even know where to begin. "How about with an apology?" Robert suggested, his voice gruff but not unkind. Noah nodded, his eyes meeting mine. "Evelyn, I'm so sorry. For everything. You saved our lives out there, even after how terribly I've treated you." I took a deep breath. "Noah, I love you, but love isn't enough. What you did, it's not something I can just forgive and forget." Phyllis spoke up, her voice small. "It's my fault. I've been selfish. I was so afraid of losing Noah that I nearly destroyed his chance at happiness." We all stared at her, shocked by this admission. "Mom," Noah said softly, "I love you, but Dad was right. Your love has been suffocating me. I need to stand on my own 2 feet. Phyllis nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know. I see that now. Evelyn," she turned to me, "can you ever forgive me?" I looked at this broken woman, then at Noah, then at Robert. We'd all played a part in this mess. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I'm willing to try, if we all are." Noah reached for my hand. "I want to make this right, Evelyn. I want to be the husband you deserve. Will you give me another chance?" I hesitated. The love was still there, but so was the pain. "I need time, Noah. We need time. To heal, to rebuild trust. It won't be easy." "I understand," he said, squeezing my hand. "I'm ready to do the work, whatever it takes." Robert cleared his throat. "I think we all have work to do. As a family." Family. The word hung in the air, full of promise and challenge. As I looked around at these people, my husband, my in-laws, I realized something. We'd all been drowning in one way or another, drowning in fear, in misplaced loyalty, in resentment, but we'd also saved each other. Maybe, just maybe, we could learn to swim together. "Okay," I said finally. "Let's try. But on one condition." They all looked at me expectantly. "Our next family vacation? No beaches." For the first time in what felt like forever, we all laughed. It was a small moment, but it felt like the first ray of sunshine after a long, dark storm. As we sat there, planning our next steps, I felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be tough, full of therapy sessions and difficult conversations, but we'd faced death together and survived. Perhaps we could face life too, and come out stronger on the other side. I squeezed Noah's hand, meeting his eyes. "One day at a time," I said softly. He nodded, a small smile on his face. "One day at a time." The letter trembled in my hands, its contents threatening to shatter the peaceful life I'd built. I read it again, hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something less devastating. They didn't. "Sarah?" Ethan's voice floated up from downstairs. "Everything okay?" I swallowed hard, stuffing the letter into my pocket. "Fine, honey. Just sorting through some old papers." The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. Ethan and I had always prided ourselves on our honesty. But how could I confront him with this? How could I ask my husband of 15 years if he'd been living a double life? I made my way downstairs, plastering on a smile as I entered the kitchen. Ethan stood at the stove, stirring a pot of his famous chili. The domestic scene felt surreal now, tainted by the weight of the secret in my pocket. "There you are," he said, flashing me that boyish grin that had first stolen my heart. "Taste this for me, will you?" I obliged, letting the spicy flavors dance on my tongue. It was delicious as always. But the warmth of the chili couldn't chase away the chill that had settled in my bones. "Perfect," I managed, forcing a smile. Ethan's brow furrowed. "You sure you're okay, Sarah? You look a little pale." I waved off his concern. "Just tired from work. Nothing a good night's sleep won't fix." He nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Well, dinner's almost ready. Why don't you set the table?" As I laid out plates and silverware, my mind raced. Should I confront him now? Or wait until I had more proof? The letter had been anonymous, after all. But the details, they were too specific to be a random accusation. We sat down to eat, the silence between us growing heavier with each passing moment. Ethan chatted about his day at the office, oblivious to my inner turmoil. "Oh, I almost forgot," he said suddenly. "Your sister called earlier. She wants us to come over for dinner this weekend." I nearly choked on my chili. "Lisa? What did she want?" Ethan shrugged. "Just to catch up, I guess. It's been a while since we've seen her." My grip tightened on my fork. "Lisa." Of course she'd be involved in this somehow. Our relationship had always been strained, but this was a new low, even for her. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Ethan looked up, surprised. "Why not?" "I thought you two were trying to patch things up." I laughed bitterly. "Patch things up? Lisa's never cared about anyone but herself." "Sarah," Ethan said, his tone gentle, "what's really going on? You've been acting strange all evening." For a moment I considered telling him everything, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I pushed back from the table, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I need some air," I muttered, heading for the door. "Sarah, wait." But I was already gone, stepping out into the cool night air. My hand slipped into my pocket, fingers brushing against the crumpled letter. I pulled it out, reading it one more time in the dim glow of the porch light. The words seemed to mock me now. "Your husband isn't who you think he is. Ask him about July 15th, 2010. Ask him about the cabin in the woods. Ask him about the baby." I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. When I opened them again, I saw Ethan watching me from the window, concern etched across his face. In that moment, I knew our life would never be the same. The perfect marriage, the successful careers, the plans for our future. It all felt like a house of cards, ready to come crashing down. And somewhere out there, I was sure Lisa was laughing. I stood outside Lisa's apartment, my hand poised to knock. The familiar dread I always felt around my younger sister churned in my stomach. But I needed answers, and Lisa was the only one who might have them. Taking a deep breath, I rapped on the door. Moments later, it swung open, revealing Lisa's perfectly made-up face and designer outfit. Well, well," she drawled, leaning against the doorframe. "If it isn't my successful big sister, to what do I owe the pleasure?" I pushed past her into the apartment, ignoring her sarcasm. "We need to talk, Lisa." She closed the door, her eyes narrowing. "About what?" I pulled the crumpled letter from my pocket, thrusting it towards her. About this. Did you send it?" Lisa barely glanced at the paper. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't play dumb," I snapped. "It's about Ethan. About a baby. What do you know?" For a split second, something flashed across Lisa's face. Surprise? Fear? But it was gone so quickly, I couldn't be sure. "Sarah," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "I think you're losing it. Why would I know anything about Ethan's secrets?" I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to shake her. "Because you've always been jealous of what Ethan and I have. You've always tried to come between us." Lisa laughed, the sound grating on my nerves. Oh, please, not everything is about you, sis. Maybe Ethan just got tired of playing house with Little Miss Perfect. Her words hit me like a slap. What's that supposed to mean? She shrugged, moving to pour herself a glass of wine. Nothing. Just that maybe there's more to your precious husband than you know. I watched her, my suspicion growing. You do know something, don't you? Tell me, Lisa, what happened on July 15th, 2010? The wine glass froze halfway to her lips. What? July 15th, 2010, I repeated. The cabin in the woods, the baby. What do you know? Lisa set down her glass, her composure slipping. I don't know what you're talking about, but I could see the lie in her eyes. You're protecting him, I realized. Why? What hold does Ethan have over you? Get out, Lisa hissed, her face flushing. You're crazy, Sarah. Always have been. Always will be. I stood my ground. Not until you tell me the truth. Lisa's eyes darted around the room, like a cornered animal. Then suddenly she lunged for her phone on the coffee table. What are you doing? I demanded. Calling Ethan, she spat. He needs to know how unhinged his wife has become. I moved without thinking, grabbing her wrist. Don't you dare. We struggled for a moment, Lisa's manicured nails digging into my skin. In the scuffle, a framed photo on the side table crashed to the floor. We both froze, staring at the shattered glass. And that's when I saw it. A glimpse of a photo I'd never seen before, half hidden under the broken frame. I bent down, my heart pounding. It was a picture of Lisa and Ethan. They were standing in front of a small wooden cabin, Ethan's arm around Lisa's waist, and Lisa was holding a baby. The room spun around me as I picked up the photo with trembling hands. What is this? Lisa's face had gone pale. Sarah, I can explain. But I was already backing away, the truth hitting me like a tidal wave. My sister. My husband. A secret child. How could you? I whispered, my voice breaking. Lisa reached for me, her eyes pleading. Sarah, please. I shoved past her, stumbling out of the apartment. The last thing I heard was Lisa's voice calling after me. Sarah, wait, you don't understand. But I understood all too well. As I ran down the stairs, clutching the damning photo, I realized that everything I thought I knew about my life had been a lie. And the worst part? This was only the beginning. The drive to Ethan's parents' house was excruciating. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, as Ethan chatted about work beside me. How could he act so normal when our world was crumbling? Sarah? Ethan's voice broke through my thoughts. You missed the turn. I jerked the wheel, making a sharp U-turn. Sorry, I was distracted. Ethan frowned. You've been distracted a lot lately. Is everything okay? I wanted to scream, to confront him about the photo, about Lisa, about everything, but not here, not now. I'm fine, I lied. Just stressed about work. We pulled into Lyle and Martha's driveway, the familiar two-story colonial looming before us. I'd always felt welcome here, but today the house seemed to hold secrets of its own. Martha greeted us at the door, her smile warm but her eyes sharp. Sarah, dear, and Ethan, my boy. Come in, come in. As we stepped inside, I noticed Martha's gaze lingering on Ethan, a silent exchange passing between them. My suspicion deepened. Lyle emerged from his study, clapping Ethan on the back. Good to see you, son. Sarah, you're looking lovely as ever. We settled in the living room, making small talk about work and the weather. But there was an undercurrent of tension, like a live wire running beneath the polite conversation. So, Martha said, setting down her teacup, when are you two going to give us some grandchildren? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I saw Ethan stiffen beside me. Mom, he said, his voice strained, we've talked about this. Sarah and I are focused on our careers right now. Martha's eyes narrowed. But surely you want children, Ethan. You've always been so good with kids. Something in her tone made me sit up straighter. What do you mean, Martha? She waved a hand dismissively. Oh, you know, he's always been a natural with children. Remember that summer you spent volunteering at the youth camp, Ethan? Ethan's face had gone pale. That was a long time ago, Mom. Summer camp? I asked, my heart racing. When was this? Oh, must have been, 2010? Martha said, her eyes never leaving Ethan's face. 2010. The year from the letter. The year in the photo with Lisa and the baby. Ethan never mentioned a summer camp, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Lyle cleared his throat. Perhaps we should change the subject. No, I interrupted, turning to Ethan. I'd love to hear about this camp. Was it near a cabin in the woods by any chance? The room went deathly silent. Ethan's face was a mask of shock and guilt. Martha set down her teacup with a clatter. "I think I need some fresh air," she announced, hurrying out to the patio. I stood up, my legs shaky. "I'll join you, Martha." Outside, the cool air did nothing to calm my racing heart. Martha was leaning against the railing, her back to me. "You know, don't you?" I said quietly. "About Ethan and Lisa. About the baby." Martha's shoulders sagged. She turned to face me, her eyes brimming with tears. "Oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry. We never meant for you to find out like this." "So it's true," I whispered, my world shattering around me. Martha reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "It's complicated, dear. There's so much you don't understand." "Then help me understand," I cried, my voice rising. "Tell me the truth, Martha, all of it." She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, the patio door slid open. Ethan stood there, his face a mix of fear and resignation. "No, Mom," he said quietly. "I'll tell her. It's time Sarah knew everything." As I looked between them, I realized that whatever Ethan was about to say would change my life forever, and there was no going back. I stormed into my parents' house, my emotions a volatile mix of anger and desperation. The confrontation with Ethan and his parents had left me reeling, and I needed answers. Real answers from the people who had raised me. "Mom? Dad?" I called out, my voice echoing through the familiar halls. My mother appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Sarah? What's wrong, honey? You look upset." Dad emerged from his study, his brow furrowed with concern. "Is everything all right?" I laughed bitterly. "No, everything is not all right. I need to talk to you both, now." We gathered in the living room, the tension palpable. I paced back and forth, trying to gather my thoughts. "Sarah, you're scaring us," Mom said softly. "What's going on?" I took a deep breath, then plunged in. "I know about Ethan and Lisa. I know about the baby." The color drained from both their faces. Dad's hand tightened on the armrest of his chair. What are you talking about?" Mom stammered. "Don't," I snapped. "Don't lie to me. Not anymore. I found a photo of them together with a baby at some cabin. And Ethan's parents, they know something too. I want the truth. All of it." My parents exchanged a look that spoke volumes. Dad sighed heavily, suddenly looking much older than his years. "Sarah, honey," he began, "it's complicated." "Stop saying that," I shouted, my composure finally breaking. "Everyone keeps saying it's complicated, but no one will tell me what's really going on." Mom reached out to me, but I jerked away. "We were trying to protect you," she said, her voice trembling. "Protect me?" I scoffed. "By lying to me for years? By letting me marry a man who had a child with my own sister?" Dad stood up, his face grave. "It wasn't like that, Sarah. At least she was in trouble. Ethan was trying to help." "Help?" I repeated incredulously. "By fathering her child?" "No," Mom interjected. "Ethan isn't the father. He never was." The room spun around me. "What?" Dad took a deep breath. "Lisa got mixed up with some bad people. She was young, naive. When she found out she was pregnant, she was scared. Ethan, he offered to help her hide until the baby was born." "But the photo," I whispered, "was taken the day Lisa gave the baby up for adoption," Mom finished. "Ethan was there for moral support." I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. Why didn't anyone tell me? "Lisa made us promise," Dad said. "She was ashamed, Sarah, and we thought it was better if you didn't know. We never imagined it would come out like this." The pieces were falling into place, but something still didn't add up. "But why keep it a secret all these years? Why did Ethan never tell me?" My parents exchanged another loaded glance. Mom's voice was barely above a whisper when she spoke. "Because the people Lisa was involved with, they're dangerous, Sarah. We were all trying to keep you safe." A chill ran down my spine. Safe from what? Before they could answer, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Stay away from Lisa, for your own good." I showed the message to my parents, watching the color drain from their faces once again. "Oh God," Mom breathed. "They've found her." Dad's voice was urgent. "Sarah, listen to me. You need to leave town. Now. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Not even Ethan." "But—" "No buts," he insisted. "We'll explain everything later, I promise. But right now, you need to go. Please, Sarah. Trust us." As I looked into their frightened eyes, I realized I had a choice to make. Stay and demand more answers, or run from a danger I didn't fully understand. With shaking hands, I grabbed my keys. "I'll call you when I'm safe," I promised. As I rushed out the door, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. The truth I'd sought had only led to more questions, and now it seemed it had put my very life in danger. I paced the living room, my nerves frayed to the breaking point. It had been 3 days since I'd fled my parents' house, and Ethan still hadn't come home. My calls went straight to voicemail, my texts unanswered. The silence was deafening. A knock at the door made me jump. Heart racing, I approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. It was Martha, Ethan's mother. I opened the door, my voice trembling. "Martha, what are you doing here?" Her eyes were red-rimmed, her usually immaculate appearance disheveled. "Sarah, dear, I need to talk to you about Ethan." A chill ran down my spine. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. Martha sank onto the couch, her hands twisting in her lap. "Have you heard from him?" I shook my head. "Nothing. I was hoping you had." She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. "He's gone, Sarah. He left a note. Oh, God, I can't believe this is happening again." "Again?" I repeated, my mind reeling. "What do you mean, again? Martha, what's going on?" She pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her purse, handing it to me with shaking hands. "Read it, please." I unfolded the note, recognizing Ethan's handwriting immediately. "Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. They found her. I have to go. Keep Sarah safe. I love you all. E." The room spun around me. "Who found who?" "Martha, please. I need to understand what's happening." Martha's voice was barely above a whisper. "It's happening all over again, just like with Lisa." "Lisa?" I said, my voice rising. "What does she have to do with this?" Martha looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and resignation. "Everything, Sarah. Lisa is at the center of it all." She took a deep breath, then began to speak. "Years ago, before you and Ethan were married, Lisa got involved with some very dangerous people. A criminal organization. She thought she was in love, but she was being used." I sank into a chair, my legs no longer able to support me. "Go on," I whispered. "When she realized she was pregnant, she came to Ethan for help. He hid her at the cabin, helped her give the baby up for adoption. We thought it was over, that she was safe. But now they've found her," I finished, the pieces finally falling into place. Martha nodded. "And Ethan? Oh, Sarah, he's always felt responsible. He couldn't save her then, but now." "He's gone after her," I said, the realization hitting me like a punch to the gut. Just then, my phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Time's up. Choose a side." I showed it to Martha, watching the color drain from her face. "Oh, God," she whispered. "Sarah, you need to leave. Now, it's not safe here anymore." But as I stared at the message, something inside me snapped. I was tired of running, tired of being kept in the dark. "No," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "I'm not going anywhere. It's time I faced this head on." Martha's eyes widened. "Sarah, you don't understand. These people, they're dangerous." "I don't care," I interrupted. "Ethan's out there, risking his life for my sister. I can't just sit here and do nothing." I stood up, a plan already forming in my mind. "I'm going to find them, Martha. Both of them, and I'm going to end this once and for all." Martha reached for me, her voice pleading. "Sarah, please think about what you're saying. You could be killed." But my mind was made up. As I looked at Martha's terrified face, I knew I was crossing a line from which there was no return. "I'd rather die fighting than live in fear," I said, my voice steady. "It's time to finish what Lisa started all those years ago." As I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Whatever lay ahead, whatever dangers I might face, I knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. I stood in Ethan's favorite bar, surrounded by his friends, their accusing glares burning into me. I'd come here hoping for answers, but all I found was hostility. "What did you do to him, Sarah?" Jake, Ethan's best friend, demanded. "He was fine until that night he came home from your parents' place." I flinched, remembering the argument that had preceded Ethan's disappearance. "I didn't do anything. I'm trying to find him, just like you are." "Bull," Sarah, another friend, spat. "Ethan would never just leave, not unless you pushed him away." The unfairness of it all made my blood boil. "You don't know anything about what's going on," I snapped. "None of you do." Jake stepped closer, his voice low and threatening. "Then enlighten us, Sarah. What exactly is going on?" For a moment, I considered telling them everything about Lisa, the baby, the dangerous people from her past. But the memory of that threatening text message stopped me. I couldn't risk putting anyone else in danger. "I can't," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm sorry, but I can't explain. The group's hostility seemed to intensify. I felt cornered, outnumbered. "Maybe you should just go," Sarah said coldly. "We'll find Ethan ourselves." As I turned to leave, defeated, my phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Tick-tock, Sarah. Time's running out for Ethan and Lisa." My heart raced. I had to get out of here, had to keep searching. But as I reached for the door, a hand grabbed my arm. "What's that?" Jake demanded, having seen the message over my shoulder. "Who's threatening you? And what does Lisa have to do with this?" Before I could answer, the bar's TV caught my attention. A breaking news banner flashed across the screen. "Local businessman Ethan Roberts and sister-in-law Lisa Carter missing. Foul play suspected." The room fell silent as everyone turned to watch. My legs gave out, and I sank onto a bar stool, my world crumbling around me. The reporter's voice seemed to come from far away. "Sources say Roberts and Carter were last seen entering an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Police are treating their disappearance as suspicious." "Sarah," Jake's voice was gentler now, tinged with concern. "What the hell is going on?" I opened my mouth to respond, but my phone buzzed again. This time it was Martha calling. "Sarah," she sobbed as soon as I answered. "They've taken Lyle. They left a note. They want you to come alone to the warehouse. Oh, God, Sarah, what are we going to do?" The room spun around me. Ethan, Lisa, and now Lyle, all in danger because of me. Because I'd started asking questions, because I'd refused to let sleeping dogs lie. "I'll handle it, Martha," I heard myself say, my voice sounding strangely calm. "Just stay where you are. I'll bring them all home." As I hung up, I realized Ethan's friends were staring at me, their expressions a mix of confusion and growing understanding. "Sarah," Jake said slowly, "whatever's happening, you don't have to face it alone. Let us help." For a moment, I was tempted. But then I remembered the threats, the danger. I couldn't risk anyone else's life. "I'm sorry," I said, standing up. "But this is something I have to do on my own." As I walked out of the bar, my heart pounding and my mind racing, I knew I was walking into a trap. But I had no choice. Ethan, Lisa, Lyle, their lives were in my hands now. With each step towards my car, towards the warehouse where my fate awaited, I felt a strange mix of terror and determination. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain. By the end of this night, everything would change. And I had to be ready for whatever came my way. The church was packed for Lyle's funeral. I sat in the front pew, numb with grief and exhaustion. The past week had been a blur of police interviews, sleepless nights, and unanswered questions. Martha sat beside me, her hand clutching mine, both of us lost in our sorrow. As the minister began his eulogy, a commotion at the back of the church caught my attention. I turned, and my heart stopped. There, standing in the doorway, was Ethan, and beside him, looking pale and shaken, was Lisa. A collective gasp rippled through the congregation. Martha's grip on my hand tightened painfully. "Sarah," she whispered, her voice trembling, "what's happening?" I couldn't answer. I was frozen, watching as Ethan and Lisa made their way down the aisle. Ethan's eyes were fixed on me, a mixture of guilt and determination in his gaze. They reached the front, and Ethan spoke, his voice carrying through the stunned silence. "I'm sorry for interrupting, but there's something we need to say, something that can't wait any longer." The minister stepped aside, clearly at a loss. I stood up, my legs shaking. "Ethan," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "where have you been? What's going on?" He took a deep breath, glancing at Lisa before turning back to me. "Sarah? We've been hiding from the people who were after Lisa, the ones who killed Lyle." A murmur ran through the church. I felt like I was in a nightmare, unable to wake up. "But that's not all," Lisa chimed in, her voice small and frightened. "Ethan and we've been—" "No," I said, shaking my head. "Don't say it. Please, don't say it." But Ethan pressed on, his words like daggers to my heart. "We've been having an affair, Sarah. It started when I went to help Lisa hide. I'm so sorry. We never meant for it to happen, but—" The world tilted around me. I heard Martha's shocked gasp, felt the weight of everyone's stares. But all I could focus on was the crushing pain in my chest. "How could you?" I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "After everything we've been through, how could you do this?" Ethan reached for me, but I jerked away. "Sarah, please. You have to understand. We were scared. We thought we were going to die. It just happened." Lisa stepped forward, her eyes pleading. "Sarah, I know you must hate me, But we need your help. The people who killed Lyle, they're still after us. We don't know who else to turn to." I laughed bitterly, the sound echoing through the church. "You betray me in the worst possible way, and now you want my help. How dare you?" But even as the words left my mouth, I knew I couldn't turn them away. Not with killers on their trail. Not with Lyle's death still unsolved. Martha stood up, her voice shaking with anger. "Get out, both of you. How dare you come here to Lyle's funeral with this betrayal?" Ethan's face crumpled. "Mom, please." We didn't know where else to go. Suddenly, the church doors burst open. 2 men in dark suits strode in, their hands reaching inside their jackets. "There they are," one shouted. "Get them!" Chaos erupted. People screamed, scrambling for cover. Ethan grabbed Lisa's hand, pulling her towards a side exit. "Sarah," he called over his shoulder. "Please, help us." As gunshots rang out, shattering the stained glass windows, I found myself faced with an impossible choice. Stay and let Ethan and Lisa fend for themselves, or risk everything to help the 2 people who had hurt me the most. In that moment, with bullets flying and my world crumbling around me, I made a decision that would change everything. And as I ran after Ethan and Lisa, ducking to avoid the gunfire, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. I stood in the lawyer's office, my hands clenched at my sides, as Ethan and Lisa argued vehemently about their supposed rights to the family assets. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of revelations and betrayals, but nothing could have prepared me for this final insult. "You can't do this, Sarah," Ethan shouted, his face red with anger. "I'm Lyle's son. I have a right to my inheritance." Lisa nodded vigorously. "And as Ethan's partner, I should have a claim too. It's only fair." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Fair? You want to talk about fair? After everything you've done?" The lawyer, Mr. Thompson, cleared his throat. "If I may interject, the situation is quite clear legally. Mrs. Roberts, Sarah, is now legally Martha's adopted daughter. As such, she has full rights to the estate, as per Mrs. Roberts' will." Ethan's jaw dropped. When did this happen?" I smiled sadly. "While you were off playing house with my sister Ethan, Martha and I grew closer. She saw how much I cared for her, how I stood by her side through everything. She made her choice." Lisa lunged forward, her eyes wild. "You manipulated her. You turned her against us." "No, Lisa," I said firmly. "You did that all on your own. Both of you did." Mr. Thompson produced a document. "I have here Mrs. Roberts' last will and testament. It clearly states that all assets are to be transferred to her daughter, Sarah. There's no ambiguity." Ethan slumped in his chair, the fight seeming to drain out of him. "Sarah, please. We can work this out. We're family." I felt a surge of strength I didn't know I possessed. "No, Ethan. We were family. You and Lisa destroyed that when you betrayed me, when you lied, when you put your own selfish desires above everything else." "What about forgiveness?" Lisa pleaded. "Isn't that what family does?" I turned to her, my voice steady. "Forgiveness is earned, Lisa, and neither of you has done anything to deserve it." Just then, the office door opened and Adam walked in. My rock, my support through this entire ordeal. He came to stand beside me, his hand on my shoulder. "Is everything okay here?" he asked, his eyes never leaving Ethan and Lisa. I nodded, drawing strength from his presence. "Yes, we're just wrapping up." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Who's this?" "This is Adam," I said, my voice filled with pride. "My husband." The shock on their faces was almost comical. Lisa sputtered. "Husband? But how? When?" "While you two were busy trying to tear this family apart," Adam said calmly, "Sarah and I were building something new, something stronger." I turned to Mr. Thompson. "I believe we're done here. Please ensure that all the paperwork is in order." As we turned to leave, Ethan made one last desperate attempt. "Sarah, please, we can start over. Give us another chance." I paused at the door, looking back at the 2 people who had once meant everything to me. "No, Ethan, this is the end. I'm moving forward with my life, with people who truly love and respect me. I hope someday you both understand the damage you've caused." With that, Adam and I walked out, leaving Ethan and Lisa behind, not just in the office, but in my life. As we stepped into the sunlight, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The pain wasn't gone, not completely, but for the first time in months, I felt hope. "Are you okay?" Adam asked gently. I smiled up at him, tears in my eyes. "I will be. We will be." As we walked hand in hand towards our future, I realized that sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the one you're born into. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I had the strength to face them. The old Sarah, naive, trusting, easily manipulated, was gone. In her place stood a woman who had weathered the storm and emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace the life she deserved. And as I looked towards the horizon, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The journey had been painful, but it had led me exactly where I needed to be.